Welcome to the You on the Camino de Santiago podcast, Season 4. This podcast is for and about people getting ready for their first ever pilgrimage on the Camino de Santiago in Spain, France, and Portugal. With your host, Camino guide and longtime pilgrim, Nancy Reynolds of the Camino Experience. Hi, this is Nancy coming to you as I make my way back home to California after a month on the Camino Francés. Thank goodness for technology, because I was able to record, edit, and queue up this episode long before its release date, which is good because I am probably enjoying a movie and a glass of wine somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, taking a deliberate break from my computer and Wi-Fi at this scheduled release time. You already know that I am a big fan of the Camino de Santiago pilgrimage, and I love helping first-time pilgrims get started on their own potentially once-in-a-lifetime journeys. I've just finished walking with a group of 9 pilgrims from Saint-Jean-Pied-du-Port to Pamplona, and they are now making their way toward Santiago without me. I am so proud of these pilgrims and all they have overcome to make their dreams of walking the Camino a reality. Back in a previous life, as they say, I used to lead training programs for Chase Bank and Citibank, and my favorite class to lead was the New Hire Orientation Program. So it makes sense, doesn't it, that my favorite way to help first-time pilgrims is to help them get started and to encourage and empower them to make this journey their own. I will be leading another group in September this year. Next year, I will again be leading at least 2 groups, again in May and September. And if I get enough interest, I will also add a group in April and one in late September or early October. Are you interested? Please do let me know. You can do that by following the links in the show notes or going directly to my website. When you get to thecaminoexperience.com, look for the menu tab called Walk With Me. I plan to finalize the dates for my 2025 groups in early July, and I hope to hear from you. And if you are not keen to start with a group, but you would still like all the expert assistance I give to my pilgrims, you may want to check out my DIY Plus program. That has the same support as my groups, except that we don't meet up in Saint-Jean-Pied-du-Port, so we're not on the trail together. The next DIY Plus program starts in late June or early July, and you can get on that wait list too. Just look for the tab that says DIY Camino on my website. If you are listening to this episode a while after its release date, do be sure to go to my website to find out what's going on now, whenever now is. Speaking of now, let's now meet my guest for this episode. That's Natasha, coming to us from New Zealand. Natasha loves to plan travel, and she will share with us how that planning journey has been going and the role FOMO is playing in the process. We also touch on the topic of loss, but it's not the kind of loss we usually talk about. Curious? Let's go ahead and say hello to Natasha. Natasha, hi. Thank you so much for being with me on the podcast.
Hi, Nancy. Thank you so much for having me on the show. I am a huge fan, and I'm totally playing that down.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. And I hope it's because it's the podcast is helping you get ready for your Camino and giving you lots of good information and support and inspiration.
Yes, absolutely. But to me, it's a lot more than that. I think it's the conversations that you have with guests who come on your show, and you're very supportive and you validate everyone's feelings, and it is just beautiful to see.
Oh, I'm so glad. I've had some amazing people on my podcast. Just amazing. That's such an honor for me to know them. And I'm adding you to that list now.
Thank you. I do feel really honored.
Oh, well, and I was so excited when I got your request to be on the podcast. I just was so intrigued. There's a few cultural things that are woven together into your story, and I'm so interested in them coming out in our conversation. We should probably start with where you're from, since your accent is noticeable compared to my American accent. So where are you coming from?
So I'm originally from India. I lived in India for the first 25 years of my life. And and then when I turned 25, I moved to New Zealand. And that's where I've been since then. I just turned 40 earlier this year, and it's just been an amazing change. But something that I did think about when I was thinking about, coming on your show is I've actually spent more time planning the Camino than I did planning my move from India to New Zealand.
Oh, that is hilarious. I love that. What do you think it is that has you so engaged in the planning process?
So that's a really interesting question, and I'm a planner. My dream job would be a travel agent.
Mm,
I have worked as a flight attendant in the past, and that's purely because gave me the opportunity to see the world and not have to pay for it.
right on.
Yeah, so I get really, really deep into the planning process, and I think, and maybe this is not a good thing, I almost obsess about travel. I always have at least one trip that I'm planning. And to me, it doesn't even matter if I get to go on the trip. And, case in point, when COVID came around, I did have a trip that I was planning. And when we went into lockdown and realized that we couldn't travel anymore, I didn't feel any sadness from having to cancel that trip. The sadness was from what was happening in the world.
I understand that completely. I also love the planning process as much, if not more, than the actual travel itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of travel as well, and so for me, the newness and the novelty of it has sort of worn off, but that doesn't mean I don't love it just as much. Yeah, and the getting ready and just sort of looking at the map and planning out all the possibilities. I really relate to that. Yeah. So I was thinking that when you use the word obsessed, that there are much worse things to be obsessed about.
Yes, yes, I totally I have to agree with that. I think it feeds my soul,
Mm.
and everyone needs some form of, I don't even know if I should call it a vice, but I guess it can get to a stage where, because travel costs money,
Yeah.
and spending money on travel, there's other things that might be important to your family that you're not spending that money on. So yeah, I don't know.
Well, if you're not eating and you're not bathing and you're not feeding your family and you're not getting any work done, maybe you've gone a little too far. But, I have a feeling that's nothing, no harm has been done.
I like that. I'm going to run with that.
Yeah, exactly. Do no harm and y'all get your own food. I'm very busy planning my Camino. Well, how about we start where I always like to start with putting the pin in the map? And would you share with us your Camino plans?
Sure. So we're planning on starting in St. John, Peter Port. I think I said that correctly.
Really well.
If everything goes to plan, we will finish in Santiago. I'm really looking forward to it. We're going to be traveling for something like 33 hours before we even get to Biarritz.
Holy cow.
And yeah, just really excited that we're going all that way. So it was a little bit of a no-brainer to try to do what some people call the entire French route.
Good. Yes. And how long will you be gone?
Yeah, so that's really interesting as well, because I've got a rough plan around how many days it's going to take me, and I have it down as between 36 and 37 days, but I do have a week built in at the end. And that is to account for things like illness or blisters, or even just, hey, this is a cool place. I'm going to stay here another night.
Great. I love that. And then if you get to the end and you still have that week, what will you do with it?
Well, that is a question that I was going to ask you, Nancy.
Oh, yes. Yes. Let's talk about that. Do you want to do that now or should we save it for the end?
No, totally. And I
Okay.
think it was so important for me to get your thoughts on this that I've written down this question because I wanted to make sure that I got the chance to ask you.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so if everything goes to plan, I should have 5 or 6 nights at the end,
Okay.
and I have no idea what to do during that time.
Mm,
The only place that I'll need to be, and that's end of October, is in Paris for my flight back home.
okay. So it's a big question because you are familiar with Europe. You've traveled through Europe, yes?
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the hard things about this question is that you don't know how you're going to feel when you complete the pilgrimage, and you don't know what you are going to be wanting. And if you're not traveling alone, you've got someone else to consult as well. And that could be two people going in the same or different directions. So that's a really tough one. So I think the first thing that I would look at is how much time do you want in Santiago de Compostela? That is an incredible city. It's vibrant, it's active, it's a university city. So there's always lots going on. And there's incredible food and tours of the cathedral and a pilgrimage museum. And did I mention there's great food? Yeah. Yeah. So there's lots to see and do in Santiago. But the interesting thing about Santiago is your first day there, you're going to know everybody you see. You'll pass by pilgrims. You'll be like, hey, haven't seen you for 3 days or a week. Or, oh my gosh, I met you in Orison. What the heck? And then the next day, there'll be more people who are like, oh my gosh, hi, you made it. Yay. And we're celebrating and we're seeing all the people we know and love. The next day, there's only 3 people left who you know because everybody's left. And so by the third day, the fourth day, the fifth day, Santiago is still an amazing city, but you no longer know everyone.
Right.
So that's one thing to sort of balance out with how you decide how much time to stay there. And then there's the question of which direction to go and what kind of experience do you want? You know me, I always go back to the experience. Do you want some reflective time? Do you want some time to process this journey and what it has meant to you? Do you want some sit by the ocean and watch the waves time? Or do you want to max out on this European adventure and visit some European cities? The tricky thing is that sitting here right now in Auckland, New Zealand, you don't know how you're going to feel at the end of your pilgrimage.
Yes, and I think the biggest piece of advice that I've taken from everything that you've just said is that it's not just me to consider,
Mm.
because I'm traveling with my partner, and we have had conversations around, we walk at different paces.
Mm-hmm.
So we're very okay with starting the day off together and then just walking at our own pace, walking our own walk, and we meet at the end because we have pre-booked accommodation that is semi-flexible.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a really cool point that you raised, because this perhaps is another conversation that we need to have, at the end when we get to Santiago, and we're planning at this stage to spend 2 nights there. Depending on where we're at mentally,
Mm-hmm.
we might want different things. So
Yeah.
perhaps just doing different things for a few nights and then meeting in Paris might be an idea.
There you go.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's just jump right out of the box, right?
Yeah, totally.
One of my favorite things to do in Spain is rent a car or hire a car, depending on where you're coming from, and just tootle around. And Santiago has a very enviable position in Spain in that if you go north and west, you're going to hit the coast. You cannot miss the coast. If you go south, you're going to hit more of the coast. And if you keep going south, you're going to hit Portugal. If you go east, you can drive back along the Camino that you just walked and visit some of your favorite places. So that's another thing to throw into the mix is, oh, what if you rent a car for a few days and just
Yeah,
go tootle around and see stuff? I actually came across a saved, somebody shared a website on Facebook or something somewhere that had road trips in Galicia. And I saw that and I went, oh, okay, let's bookmark that one. Yeah. So there's lots of things that you could do. But I do, yeah, I do really think consulting your partner is a good first step.
yeah, yeah. And I hadn't even thought of that.
Your secret's safe
Yeah.
with me. Okay, very good. So I'm interested in hearing about your planning process. As someone who loves to plan, how have you been putting this whole big thing together? Where'd you start? What you've been doing?
Yeah, so I started with your podcast, which was just so helpful. And it talked about things that perhaps get lost in the overload of information that you're trying to get from the internet. So that was really helpful. And then I'll say it, I'm a spreadsheet pilgrim. So I mapped out all of the places that I wanted to stop in on the way, keeping in mind the distance that I think I'd be able to walk. So I ended up with a list of little towns on the Camino, and then I moved to the next stage of trying to book accommodation. Initial plan was to book accommodation just for the first 5 nights,
Mhm.
but I got completely carried away. I've done the whole lot,
Oh my gosh, I love that.
and I haven't parted with any money. And I've done most of the bookings are through booking.com, and I have the flexibility to cancel up to some places even the day before I arrive. But I'll give them more notice because I don't think that's a very fair thing to do. Cancel at the last minute.
Spoken as someone from the travel industry.
Yeah, so once I had the accommodations, that was a really interesting process because I found that, I was looking, for example, at Logroño, and accommodation was really expensive. So I did a bit of research, and turns out we're in Logroño for the wine festival.
Yes, the wine festival is in September.
Yes, so we're going to be there for that, and then moved on to I was looking at Leon, and I was wondering why accommodation there was so expensive. And again, we're hitting a festival there, so it's just been a journey of discovery that I have just enjoyed so much. And something that I found really strange was as I got towards the end and I was booking accommodation for, the last 5 or so days of the trip, I started feeling a sense of sadness because my trip was coming to an end.
It's almost as if you have already made the journey once, isn't it? And you're going to now go back and walk it.
Yes.
Oh, that really touches me. I hadn't thought about that as part of, I always say that the planning is an important part of your Camino journey if that's your way of doing it. Listen, if you don't like to plan, don't. You can show up and just go. But what you just described is you have already made the journey and now you're going, oh, wow. Yeah, I really love that. And I can see why you would get to that point and go, oh, that part's coming to an end. So there could be some sadness.
Yes. Yeah.
Hmm.
And it's sort of prepared me in a way for the emotions that I might experience when in reality it is coming to an end.
Yeah. Huh. That's really interesting. Here's an interesting question. People have this idea that walking the Camino is this incredible adventure and it's all fun and wonderful and rainbows, butterflies, the whole thing. And it's not all fun. It's hard at times. It's really difficult and your feet hurt and your body hurts and you get tired and cranky. And I will not sleep next to that man who snores again. And so then from what you said about your planning process, we would go, oh, well, then the whole planning process must have been fun and easy and light and delightful. Did you have any difficulties or frustrations or challenges in planning your Camino itinerary?
Yes, so I did have some challenges, and they came from, again, the information overload and the fear of missing out.
That one.
Yes, and it's such a big one, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it has to be because so many people think of this as a once in a lifetime trip. Don't you want to get it all in? Don't you want every single part of it? It's just natural human nature, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
totally. But in terms of the physical aspect to it, I know that it's going to be hard. I've done a few multi-day hikes here in New Zealand, and honestly, I spent the first day of every one of those hikes questioning why I was even there.
Yeah. I wonder if that's a preview of things to come. So, what you do is you plan the entire journey and then you send your partner to walk it.
Yeah.
And you stay home and collect the photos as they get sent in.
Yeah, no, I don't know if I want to do that.
No, that could cause some discord, perhaps. Oh my goodness. Wow. Well, I love hearing about the planning process. Obviously, I love planning. And in fact, I've just been working on my plan right today. I got nothing else done because I got so wrapped up in mapping out my stages from Logroño to Burgos. Yeah. Anyway, 4 hours go by, but here we are.
Wow.
So fun. So I'm curious about why you're walking the Camino and why you're walking it now at this stage of your life.
So the first time I heard about the Camino wasn't very long ago. It was in 2018 or 2019. I went to the movies with my partner and we watched a show, or a documentary rather, and it was called Camino Skies.
Okay.
And it was a group of 6 people from Australia and New Zealand, and it followed their journeys. And I remember watching that documentary and I was following their story as opposed to focusing on the landscape that they were walking through. Yeah, so we watched the movie driving home, and my partner and I were talking about how cool it would be to do something like that. And something that immediately came to my mind is that yes, these 6 people, they were all there walking their journey, walking their Camino, and they were processing some form of loss.
Mm.
So I didn't really connect to their stories at the time because I hadn't experienced anything like that. Then we went back to our real lives. We kind of said that the Camino perhaps would be something we'd do when we retired, because, how are you going to get 6.5 weeks off work?
Right.
And I went back to planning the next trip that we had on the cards. And my partner was having a significant birthday, and we decided to go to South America and walk the Inca Trail, explore a bit of Argentina, maybe go further south because I love penguins and I thought it'd be cool to see the penguins.
Yeah.
And that was a trip that was going to happen in 2020. Well, we all know what happened in 2020.
Yes.
And yeah, so no travel. We did a bit of local travel here in New Zealand, which was really great. And then fast forward to when the lockdowns all over the world ended, countries opened up, we could travel again. High on my list was going back to India to see my parents, which we did. And then as soon as I came back, I started planning another trip. And what a great excuse. I was turning 40. I just turned 40 earlier this year. So I said, okay, right, for my 40th, let's do a trip. And I naturally went back to thinking about South America and the Inca Trail. So I was, heavily involved in planning that trip. And my partner came home from work one day and said, hey, I was listening to this podcast on my way home. and it was about a father and a son, and they walked the Camino. So this is now the second time that the Camino has been mentioned.
Okay.
So I went back to planning South America, but I couldn't get the Camino out of my mind. And there was something in me that didn't want to say it out loud or admit it to myself. So I just carried on. The bizarre thing is, 2 weeks later, my partner comes home and says, "Hey, you know the trip we're planning to South America?" Yeah. We were planning on walking the Inca Trail for 4 days. Why walk 4 days when you can walk 40? And that was it. I was hooked.
What an awesome question.
Yeah.
Yes. Why have a bite when you can have the whole chocolate bar?
Yeah.
Don't eat the whole cake though, okay? Just a
Yeah.
piece.
Yeah. Right.
Okay. Wow, I love that. And so that pushed you over the edge to get the planning process started?
It did. And I still don't know what in me didn't want to admit that the Camino was something I wanted to walk. It's almost like I needed someone else to say it out loud.
Okay.
And that then validated how I felt.
Oh, I bet you're not alone in that. Yeah, those things that sort of sneak in the back door or knock on the back door, forget about coming in, but just knock on the back door and we just kind of go, we can ignore it. But then it comes to the front door or somebody says something. Yeah. And then it's just all over us. We just cannot get away from it.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I am interested in seeing how this unfolds and how you explore that question of why is this calling me? What's that all about?
Yeah, so I think in the last 15 years, I've gone through so much change in my life, including moving countries.
That's a big one.
It is huge because I left my support structures behind, left family behind, and pretty much came into this unknown country and started over, which isn't easy to do as
Mm.
you get older. But I think I just haven't taken the time to process all of the change that I've experienced over the last 15 years. And there has been a lot of loss, even in happy situations or experiences that we have. There can be loss as well. So, I'll give you an example. Yes, I moved countries to New Zealand. Everything is brilliant here. I have gained so much. But what did I lose? And I think I haven't had the time to process everything that I've lost.
Mm.
And because I haven't done that, I think I haven't processed everything that I have in my life that I really should be grateful for.
Mm.
And Camino is going to give me the time to process.
Yes, quite a lot of time, something like 5 to 6 hours a day. Yeah, a lot
Yeah.
of time. You know, it's interesting you talk about moving country and the impact of that. And India, the impact of India is not to be underestimated. And the depth of experience in India is so incredible and so, I'll say sensual, but I mean that in the way of every single sense is engaged when you are in India. And having grown up in that, that's like the fish in the ocean. That is you, that's your environment. So I can imagine to make the change to New Zealand would be significant. You have family still in India, yes?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So that's another tether point. Yeah. So I am curious about one thing. So when I think of India, I think of Hinduism as the primary religion. And I do know that there are many other religions there. And so, not to be too nosy, but are you coming from a place of that religion, of Hinduism, or is there another religious component that's pulling you toward the Camino?
Yeah, so you just mentioned that there's so many religions and
Yeah.
cultures in India. So I'm Roman Catholic. Interestingly, my mum has Portuguese ancestors.
Okay.
So I'm kind of part Portuguese. I don't speak the language. So yeah, I'm Roman Catholic, and for me, when I found out about the Camino and I started doing a bit of research, I was a little disappointed that I didn't know about this pilgrimage that people have been doing for thousands of years, right?
Since the 900s. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Just through the planning process, I've come across things that I think have happened by chance. And I've thought this journey is really meant to be. And one of those experiences was so we're staying in Logroño, and because there's a festival on the day that we're there, we decided to walk. I say we, but it was I. I decided to walk a shorter day the next day, and we're stopping in a town called Navarrete.
Yeah.
And I was doing a bit of research into where to stay there, and I found Posada Ignatius.
Okay.
And again, went down this rabbit hole of research, and turns out the founder of a religious sect of priests called the Jesuits actually stayed there in the 15th century. My uncle was a Jesuit priest. And these things don't just happen by chance.
There's some connection points here for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, I like this. So, do you see this as sort of a way to reconnect or to go deeper into your Catholic religion and the faith that comes along with that?
Yes, so I've always, I mean, I would love to say that I'm a practicing Catholic, but I'm not. The only times I go to church now is when I'm in India and my dad says, "Hey, it's Sunday, you need to go to church." But yeah, so I think I'm more of a spiritual person, but I'm grounded in those religious beliefs. I think perhaps I've lost a little bit of my faith over the last 15 years. And I think that's natural when as you get older and you have these extreme losses that you just can't explain, you start to look to, a higher being to explain, please explain why I'm going through this.
Yeah.
And I think over the last 15 years, my faith has been slowly chipped away at.
Mm.
And I'm hoping that I come out of my Camino having a new renewal in everything that I believe in.
Mm. I think you touched on something really important, and that is regardless of what religion we grow up with, or we are taught, or we practiced when we were younger and our parents were calling those shots, we still have that deeper experience because we're human and we still have deeper questions. I don't think you can get away from those. And I know I have a couple friends who are atheists who are like, here are the things I deeply explored on my Camino. And I'm like, okay, I believe in God and I explored those same questions. So there's this wonderful connection to everyone and to whatever that greater thing is, which maybe we'll find out at some point
Yeah.
what that really is. Yeah. Oh, I think that's just really beautiful just to take that awareness onto the Camino and see what it has for you. Certainly, you'll be able to celebrate Mass all along the way as a Catholic in a Catholic country. But it'll be interesting to see if you're drawn to that and what that means for you.
Yes, that is one aspect of the Camino that I'm really looking forward to.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, anything else you'd like to share with us about the why and the why now about your Camino?
Yeah, so why now is a really, really interesting question that, I've looked back over the last 4 years and lockdowns and COVID. We can't really take anything for granted. I'm sitting here talking with you today, but I don't even know if I'll be on this planet tomorrow.
Yeah.
So I'm a strong believer in living my best life. If I can do something now, I will.
Yay.
Everything seems to have aligned. We've got the leave, we've got the money that's required to do this, and it's really expensive to fly from New Zealand to the other side of the world.
Sure.
And we've got not a lot of responsibilities. So my question was more around, why not now?
Why not now? I love that. A couple weeks ago, I had Joshua on the show, and he said I had to finally just stop coming up with reasons why not to do it
Yeah.
and go do it. Yeah. If not now, when?
Yeah. If you are looking for reasons to not do something, you will find them.
Oh, you can find them. Yeah. You don't even notice that you're making them up, but yeah, you
Yeah.
can find them. Yeah. And the thing is, this is a big thing. It's quite intimidating for people to think about taking this on when we think we know what it is, but we really don't know what it is until we get there and do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, very good. All right. So I want you to imagine that you are in Santiago de Compostela. You have walked from Saint-Jean-Pied-de-Port nearly 800 kilometers, maybe more if you've taken some of the alternative paths when you have a choice. And you're now in Santiago de Compostela, or just arriving and walking into the city. What do you think is going to be going on in your mind and in your heart?
Wow. I think I will be overwhelmed. I will be, just overcome with emotion. I think I'll be looking at the people around me to see how they're processing their experience. And I'm going to be, I think I'm going to be just so proud that I've made it. I set my mind to something and I've done it. I think also that there will be a sadness in the realization that my time on the Camino has come to an end. And hopefully I'll be back. That's what I'm hoping I'm going to be feeling.
Yeah. Back, or maybe you'll be feeling ready for the next big thing. Maybe this will open that door and you'll go, you know what? That Camino was my gateway to the
Yeah,
next thing that I just discovered my heart is longing for.
absolutely.
Yeah. I got a little emotional when you were saying that you'll look around and see what the other people are going through who are also there. Yeah. It's just, there's, I don't even know how to describe it. There's such a feeling of awe and wonder in the plaza in front of the cathedral where the pilgrims arrive. I'm going to make myself emotional just talking about it. Just, okay, let's move on. Otherwise, I'm going to start crying, which isn't a bad thing. But
Yeah.
anyway. Oh, all right. Proud of yourself. And it'll be well deserved, well earned. Yeah. Very good. Oh, okay. Well, I do want to ask if there are any other questions I can answer for you. We talked about that one about what to do at the end when you've got some extra time. What other questions can I answer for you?
I just have one more question for you, Nancy. So I've listened to your podcast, and one of the episodes you talked about the best way to get to St. John.
Mm-hmm.
Took your advice and decided to avoid what sounded like a really, really hairy road trip from Pamplona to the start. So we're flying into Paris, flying to Biarritz.
Okay.
We're spending one night in Biarritz. And then the next morning, would you recommend that we take the train or one of those? I know they have a shared shuttle.
Yes. You know, it's a bit of a coin toss, to be honest. There are two modes of transportation that are equally efficient and effective. The train ride, if the train is running, and I'll explain in a moment why I say that. If the train is running, it goes through the beautiful countryside and it's just absolutely gorgeous. The shuttles will go just along the road. It's something like a two lane highway, just going along the road. It's not beautiful. It's just, I remember I haven't taken the train for probably 15 years, but I remember it just being so scenic and so beautiful. Now, the reason I say if it's running, sometimes the tracks are unavailable, meaning they're doing maintenance or there's been a landslide or something on the tracks because it is fairly rural. And so if the train isn't running, you still buy a train ticket and go to the train station, but then they have a coach bus out in the parking lot that everybody gets on. And then you take the same road that the shuttle would take.
Okay.
If you could get the train, I think that's super fun.
What a great thing to do. I think I've kind of decided now.
You ride in cars all the time. Why? Yeah, you
Yeah.
ride in shuttle buses and vans and buses all the time. If you can take that cute little train, that'd be fun. And the thing is, it's full of pilgrims. And you can tell that they're pilgrims because everyone's carrying a backpack and wearing hiking clothes and boots. And so you're sitting next to someone and you're just, hey, bet you're going to walk the Camino, huh? Yeah, me too. And then you talk about how nervous you are and how excited you are and where are you staying and do you know where the pilgrim's office is and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So I think I'll just buy I'll buy a train ticket and then leave it to the universe.
I should clarify that's not to say that everyone on the shuttle isn't going to be pilgrims as well, because they will all be pilgrims. So you're either on a train with pilgrims or in a 8-passenger van or something like that with pilgrims. Yeah.
Yeah.
So any other questions?
No, I don't have any other questions because, as I said, I've over-researched. I've listened to your podcast. I've listened to some episodes twice. And yeah, I just think you do an amazing service for people like myself who are on the other side of the world and, haven't been there before and maybe don't know people who have done it before.
Yeah.
You're such a reliable source of information.
Thank you. That means the world to me. Yeah. I love doing it. Just love doing it. Yeah. All right. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, with all this planning that you've done, if you were to give advice to someone else who also wants to plan their trip to that level of detail, what advice would you give them?
That's an interesting question. I think, yes, this is what I would say. I would say on the fear of missing out, it's really hard to not miss out. And that's not just on the Camino, it's in our lives. We make decisions every day that result in us missing out on some experiences or interactions or whatever that may be. So it's not going to be any different on the Camino. Go with your instincts. If you end up buying the wrong pair of shoes or the wrong hiking poles or your rain jacket isn't waterproof, you can fix it.
Yeah. Yeah. And of those 37 places that you're booking to stay, some of them might not be that great. You might not like them all. You might have a cranky host. You may have the guy in the room next door who is unbelievably loud. You might have a door slammer. You might have a group of children running up and down the hallway. We don't know. We don't know what you're going to get.
No, just like life.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, if I were doing your itinerary and I was, let's just say, the exact same stages, exact same places, 1 week behind you, curiously, I would have a different Camino than you would, because there'll be different people, there'll be different pilgrims, there'll be different circumstances, even if we're on the same track.
Wow.
Sobering, right?
Really, really sobering.
This is one of the reasons why I can't actually tell you what this thing is, because it's different for everyone. So you'll go find it for yourself. You'll go find your Camino.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say before we wrap up?
No, I just want to thank you for having me on the show. It's just been an absolute honor. I was so excited. And when you sent me that email saying, hey, are you still okay for this time on this day? I looked at it and I was like, what? Of course I'm okay. That's all I've been thinking about.
I used pen, not pencil on my calendar. Yeah, that's what I do too with these interviews, because I so look forward to them just to be a part of your journey. So thank you. It's a mutual honor, I think.
Thank you, Nan.
Excellent. All right. Well, we'll wrap it up there, and I'll wish you a beautiful journey for you and your partner. And I can't wait to hear how it goes.
Thank you.